It's okay? No? Okay. So, did you take your coffee? May I ask you, where do you come from? I come from Italy.
We are from Montenegro, from the port of Bar.
Montenegro, ok.
Slovenia.
Italia? E non so chi è che ci sta guardando via in YouTube o via qualche cosa. Va bene. If you want, you can share with the people with us your experiences about disability so that we can enrich ourselves. Okay, I go on, and then we'll try to, okay. So, we are talking about disability, motorial disability, and now, then the perception. Now we will talk, also this afternoon, about sight and death, and deafness. Sight. Visual impairments and its consequences. Blindness or limited sight is a sensorial impairment. This means that visual information cannot be used to perceive reality, or that it can be used only partially because of problems during reception and transformation of the bright stimulus, and due to problems during conduction and processing of nervous pulse. Loss of sight is particularly serious because the eye, with its about 130 millions of photoreceptors, is the more important sensorial organ, not only at quantitative level, but also at quality one. There are just 5 millions of photoreceptors for the black and white, and about 130 millions for the color, receptors for colors, just in this little space. Each receptor, the information comes to the receptor as a wave, vibrations. But our brain doesn't work by wave, but functions by biological electric exchange. So each receptors of those 135 millions catch the information, the wave, transform the wave in an electric stimulus, and then send these results at the bottom of the eye, where there's a retina. The retina, I said, is made by nervous cells, neurons, and the eye are the unique part of the brain uncovered. The eyes are the window of the brain on the world. That's why it's so important during any kind of relation to look in the eyes. That's why. Because we connect two intimate words. And by sight, we can exchange each other informations that cannot be exchanged in other ways. Has it happened to you to stay with your man or woman silently looking at the stars, looking at each other, and feel the sensation to be united without words? Did you happen it? It's wonderful, no? Wonderful. Well, Loss of sight, okay, I told it. The most quantity of photoreceptors is concentrated on a very little surface called retina, so offering a sensorial sharp superior to any other sensorial organ. Therefore, it's comprehensible to the dominant role of the sight in the perception of life. Almost all activities and interactions with the world around us are controlled by sight. Ambient, where we live, instruments and materials that we use have been adjusted accordingly to our visual perception. Learning process during development age is based on more than 80% of information. On 100 information that reach the brain, 80% comes to the brain by sight, 11 by hearing, and the other 9 through the other senses. How many are the 5 senses? How many are the 5 senses? Not 5, of course. We have about more 20 senses. We have the sense of verticality. We have the sense of movement. We have the sense of temperature. Yes. We have the sense of orientation, the steering. Of course, the taste. But the main sense is the sight, 81%, and then the hearing. Okay. Almost our activities. Oh, else? Okay. It's already read. Partial or total loss of sight reduces reception and processing and information. Absence of perception of light reduces the information flow of the 5 senses from 11 megabit to just 1 megabit, just 9%. Total blindness produces a loss of 90% of information. In the world conceived by a seeing and adapted to visual needs, the loss is not only quantitative, but also qualitative. Visual impairment implicates cognitive, psychic motor, emotional, social interferences that create for individual a series of psychic and physical difficulties as far as autonomy and freedom of acting are concerned. In most cases, the visual impairment causes a total dependence from others and obstacles the process of social equalization. We can see when a disabled is on a wheelchair. So he asks to be helped, we help him, and that's all. But blind, we very often don't use the word blind. We call them low vision, poor vision, and so on. But they are very proud to be called blind. And they say, I'm a blind. I'm not poor visual. I am blind. Perception of reality of blind people. For a blind, a great obstacle should be the space. But blind, even if cannot use the visual space, uses the tactile space, acoustic space, olfactory space, and also proprioceptive space, kinesthetic or motor. Perception of reality of a blind is enriched by sensations coming from the movements of hands, embody of and from the sounds that allow the blind to perceive the presence of obstacle just in front of him and the difference between full and empty spaces. This is very important. The energy not consumed by the eye is directed to the hearing, to the ears. That's why the sounds are so important for the blind. More particular is the use of the sense of smell to recognition of different spaces like environmental atmosphere, very large and different as salty smell of sea, wet ground after rain, perfume of the vegetable world, smell of animals, thermal variation of air around, air movements. Everything can be useful to recreate the reality rejected by loss of sight. The blind has to recreate in his mind the reality and use all the senses. Did you have the experience to smell the grass just cut, for instance? Or the smell of the baby? The baby smells very particularly. Those perfumes, you are not able to buy those perfumes everywhere. Those perfumes, then nobody buy. So, salty smell means I am in front of the sea. I hear the waves. I recreate the possible reality. Conversion and the coding of visual information in alternative sensory languages. The most famous example is the Braille system. The Braille system is just a tactile method. Now, if you go on the lift in this hotel, the buttons you see are identified by Braille, the number of the floor. Use of sensorial channels alternative to sight. In the absence of sight, a crucial role is taken by sound, so that the auditory channel becomes the most important sense. Blind uses the sound as an alternative decoding in the following 5 ways. Sound discrimination. For sound discrimination is intended the capacity to recognize the auditory source. Each sound is distinguished by frequency, intensity, and tone color, and this represents the identification code of that sound. During the learning process, different tones are associated to the source of sound and memorized, so it is possible to recognize objects or situations without hand or see them. For instance, if a coin falls on ground, the blind get information about the value of the coin, the kind of surface where the coin has fallen down, and the height from the where has fell down. The same happens with the end of the white stick. The not visual reality starts to enlighten with sound and noises. It's all right? It's very important to understand this mechanism, because when we get in relation with a blind, his brain is making this kind of work. And we have to try to engage this kind, their word, not pretending they engage our word. The word is projected by seeing. Discrimination of sound and sound location. It's very important to percept the direction where sounds come from. Through localization, the blind can control his walking direction. Neurons located in the upper part of the brain are fitted to measure sound differences between left and right ear. If I see a sound coming from that direction, the sound first will hit my right ear and then the left ear. The distance of my ears determine the direction of sound and how the source of sound is near or far. This allows not only to localize the direction of sound, but also its distance. Echo, localization, and sound reflection. The blind uses echo and sound reflection, for instance, to walk in the middle of a sidewalk without having lateral contacts, or to localize an open door. Some blinds have abilities that were considered paranormal because they stopped in front of a wall or any other obstacle, just having no contact. Today we know that they are used to perceive obstacles just using the echo. The reflection of sounds create modification on the parameters of the sound wave, and the brain processes alerting the blind to stop before bumping. There's an animal that uses the echo. Very, very common. Which is the animal? The bat, yes, the bat. The bats, yes, Batman. We know Batman. The bat just uses echoes and reflections. Auditory shadow. Wow. When we light an object, a shadow appears rear the object itself. The same happens to sound when an auditory wave hits a big-sized object. Part of the wave is reflected and absorbed by object. Laterally, the wave is flexed, creating in this way a shadow area where the sound is less strong and acute. The blind uses the auditory shadow to locate objects among the sidewalk and the street, as a kiosk or a call box. But they use this sound feature also on the contrary. Between two auditory shadows, there is an area where the sound is clear. In this way, when the blind needs to cross the street, he locates the free space between two parked cars. Incredible, huh? Just with the same mechanism we use on the contrary. We see a blind crossing the street, we don't imagine what his brain is processing. Because it's all automatic. And then there is the interpretation of the movement of auditory sources. Localization and discrimination make it possible to predict pattern and behavior of an auditory source while moving, mentally drawing the possible trajectory. Noise of vehicles is extremely important to have information about the surroundings, and this changes the relation between the blind and his reality. Ambient with traffic is very rich of information. Silence is like the fog. Stop a moment. It's okay? Incredible, huh? I have many blind friends. I make them the training. One time, Giancarlo Charles, let's say Charles, we were eating in the restaurant. He ordered steak with lemon. The waiter take the dish with the steak and lemon. He just, with two movements, grasped with a fork the lemon and on the steak eat it. I made the most stupid question. I said, Charles, I had to make the question, even if I realized it's the most stupid question. How did you do to recognize lemon from steak? And they answered me, oh, Max, it's very easy. Look. He took the fork and touched the lemon. Lemon is higher than the steak. So it's very simple. It's the approach of life that changes. That's why. It's not only blindness, it's not only a physiological situation. It's an interior situation. How to behave with blind people. Try to. After I have described the law, international code, disability, perception, sight, we try to understand how to relate with the blind. Because when you are with the Navy and you have to embark people, or disembark people, you have to make some physical things. When you move close to a blind, take your time and make something so that he can notice your presence. Take into account that he doesn't see you, and doesn't your pure identity. So, first of all, tell him who you are. If you are near the blind, tell him, my name, I am Max Peter Charles. I will help you if you want. I'm here just in front of you, just side of you, inside of you, and so on. So that he can create the reality. We have to describe what we are doing, where we are, what we want to do. Surprises are not accepted because make fear. It's okay? Never says the blind for a harm to guide him. I'm sorry. Never do in this way. Don't touch it. Don't touch him. Instead, offer him your arm, and he will grab just upward the elbow, just here, and guide his hand to be grabbed here. In that way, you don't need to suggest him the direction. He will be oriented by your guide. So you let him free to accept or not, to go or not to go. You have not to force him. precede him only where the way becomes narrow. So don't stay in front of him, only when the passage is just, so you pass first and say him. Passage is just preceding, quindi, so I'm here just one step in front of you. Describe the reality. Remember that he cannot see a smile or a movement of the head. Therefore, you must talk to him. You must talk to him. That's the main problem. With people on a wheelchair, people on wheelchair that need help can talk, can see, can express their needs. A blind cannot, don't see. We have to help him to recreate the reality as most real as possible. Alert him when you intend to cross a street or to descend or climb a sidewalk. Don't do any surprise. Describe, talk, describe, talk, describe. Look, we have to climb a step on the sidewalk. Wait a moment, now you can do the step. I stay here with you in case of help. Interpreters. Interpreti, niente. Come si dice non dare nulla per scontato? Okay, don't take anything for granted. Okay, thank you very much. Don't take anything for granted with the blind. Talk, explain yourself, talk, describe, talk, describe. Never leave without goodbyes. For him it's distressing to realize to talk with someone that in the meanwhile has gone away. If you have to get away, tell him, I had to go, I'm sorry, but now a friend of mine will help you to proceed with your way and so on. Never follow him with the intention to help him in case of necessity. He perceives your presence and can remain discomforted. It's a strange rule, but we had to ask something if the other asks our help. Because if he doesn't ask our help, why we had to give him? We suppose that he needs it, but it's our supposition. So, if he asks help, okay, we are there. Otherwise, to help a blind to climb on a public transport bus, here you are. It's sufficient to put a hand on the grip or handrail and alert him if the step is particularly high. Being a stairway, let him know the first and the last step. If you put the hand of a blind on a handrail, he perceives the highest, and so deduce the height of the step. That's why. All right? If you desire to offer him a sitting place, make him touching the seat back and the seat. If it's an armchair, it's better to accompany his hand on the armrest, specifying how the armchair is oriented. This is the right armrest or the left armchair. Describe reality. You have to create in the mind of the blind the imagine of a place, of the reality. Take care that our mind usually don't work with words. Our mind don't work with concept, works with imagine. Imagination is the main language of the brain. So, if you want to communicate and to remain in communication with the blind, we have to describe the imagine, so that he can recreate his reality, not yours, his reality. I made train courses to blind, and it was a course where I had to design, to draw on the blackboard how to transport that imagine on a blind mind. What did you have to do? What would you have done? It's not so easy. But I take a young boy of the course and I said to him, just sit beside Charles. Take his hand and draw on his palm of eyes what I drew on the blackboard. Understand? And so it was really very simple. And he follows 3 days of course in this way. I made draws on the blackboard, and the boy draws made the same draws on the palm of the hand. It's worked perfect. Right? What I mean, what I want to mean that we have to create the situation where the blind is able to recreate the reality. We see the reality. We have to describe it. We have to invent new means to get in touch, to get in communication with the blind. If we are interested to him as a person, not as a passenger, just as a person. Okay? When he has to enter in a car, put his hand on the upper edge of the open door. With the other hand, the blind will touch the top of the car, and then he will sit. If he loses the orientation, simply indicate what is just in front of him, backward, on left, on right. Understand? If you should just put one hand on the upper part of the top, he understands that he has to go downwards. All right? The blind and this dog are an harmonious unity. Oh, Don't distract the dog from its task. Therefore, offer your aid only if requested explicitly. Many blind has a dog, and they are really a unity. The dogs are specially trained to assist the blind, and the blind is trained to get in relation with the dog. So, it's the blind that decide how the dog must be, when he has to eat, and so on. Don't fall in the situation where you try to help the dog before the dog, you love animal. The dog is there to make his work, and you don't know which work is done. The blind knows. So blind and cat are the same thing, the same unity. Okay? So ask the blind if his dog must eat what, has to drink what. Just ask. Talk, talk, talk. Remember, all the energy not used with the sight goes to ear for sounds. So, talk. When you are at table with the blind, ask him if you can help him. Depict him which foods are in the dish and where foods are located, taking as a reference the quadrant of the watch. So, for instance, you can say beans at 9 hours, salad at 4 hours, and so on. So he can understand. Describe him where is the glass, and don't fill it up too much. Give him something, call him by name, and touch him lightly. Always when being at lunch with Charles, that I said before, he asked me one thing. At the beginning of the lunch, he told me, Max, please change position, because I hear too much noise coming from those tables. And I change the position, and I make the obstacle of the sound. So we could have the possibility to talk, not loud, but lower voice. Being or living for some days with blinds are really a very special experience. You can learn incredibly things. For blind people, there is very important. Each thing has its own place. I saw my friend Charles in his home, move him in his home, just as he was seen all. Incredible. If in a place usually frequented something has changed position, he must know it. Reality has changed, and we describe the new situation. Remember, he can't see. So we have to see for him. If you help a blind to take off his coat, for instance, tell him always where you put it. I will put your coat on the wardrobe, or it's just on the seat beside you, and so on. If you want to read an article or a newspaper to a blind, first read him all the titles so that he can choose what he wants. Understand? And to blinds, speak always naturally and with your usual tone of voice. You don't have to feel pietas for him. It's just a human being with a limitation, and so on. That's all. All right? I leave the word to you. What kind of experience did you had with blind people? Please. No experience. You don't have any experience. So the first time you feel something about loss of light. Yes, 3 years. The blind is easily recognized, even because very often there's someone with him, and then because he had the white stick. So it's something that doesn't matter, more or less doesn't matter. I don't know in Montenegro. In Italy, on 60 million of inhabitants, of population, the blind are about 400,000. Quite a number. So it's more easy, it's quite easy to encounter one. We made this day, this train at Venice, the Venice port, and talking with the manager of the MSC cruise line, I asked, but how many disabled are on your ship? And he told me, well, on our ship of 5,000 people, passengers, usually 400 are disabled. 400? Well, my God. Yes. As a matter of fact, as you can see, we have made special runway for them to facilitate their embarkment, their control of the documents, so that they can make the queues and so on. So it's a problem very, very, very hard. because the people with disable impairment are seen by other passengers that realize if you are courteous, if you are kind with them, if you assist really them or not, and make confusion. So, someone else want to manifest experience? Did you try interest, what we have done? Useful for your work? Possible, useful for your work? That's right. That's right. Do you have any question?
The quadrant of...
Oh, but when you think of a watch, think of one watch. No. The center is not on your hands, in your imagination. If I tell you, no. The foods are on the dish. From his point of view, it's not here or it's not hand. You just imagine a watch. Try to imagine a watch. Okay, you are blind. You imagine a watch. Number 3 is just on the right, on your right. It's not the center. The imagination, of course, imagination is coming from brain. So that's for all. That's for all. So and realize what you imagine here, of course. Someone else want to talk about blind? Just a question.
Yeah, just a question to make clear the fact. Which is the difference in the behavior of a total blind and of people with difficulties in seeing?
How said the American? This is a good question. It depends on when people has lost the sight. If has lost the sight many times ago, he has the same problems of the congenital one, with a complication too, that he remember bad situation. So it's difficult for him to visualize new situation. Make one example. Think about a computer. Before the computer era, we write by hand. With the computer, we use more handwriting. But think of now with tablets, smartphone, and so on. Understand me? That's why. So, if you have become blind yesterday, you just possess all the information for the new society that is changing very, 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 very quickly. That's why. Otherwise, you remain attached to the past, and it's difficult to understand the new world. Our kids, our children, are born with the computer in the hand. Now, they are born with the smartphone on the hand. When I describe to my daughter, 23, how I lived when I had his age, I was 23, they don't trust me. They tell me, it's impossible. You made that one? It's impossible. When I told her, when I was young, there's no plastic. Plastic has been discovered, let me say, about in 1954. So, no plastic? How did you do plastic? So, I answer your question. Okay. Yes.
What about the people who are born blind?
Yes. It's a very great problem. Great problem. Parents must be very clever to talk and to love him, and to love the child. But we know very, very less of us. Children recognize, see, without never seen it before. If you think that we had remained 9 months immersed in liquid, with the blind child must be potentiated, must be powered the other senses. Because the tact, it's fundamental. Smell, the taste, here, of course. So they follow special training to sharp these senses, very extremely important. Remember always 81 information, about 10, about 100 are arrived to the brain by sight. 11 by ear, 8 by other senses. And we can say, but we don't say it, they have also other perception channels. I don't want to call them extrasensory, because otherwise we open a door. But surely they use part of the mind unknown. I make you an example, because I have lived it. With my friend Charles, as I said before, he worked at a call center of a big farm. And when his colleague, female, changed the hair cutting, he was used to say, "Oh, good morning, Mary. Oh, new haircut. Oh, you say very, very well." For 3 days, every time we have led, because for dinner, for sleep, he was used to say to goodbye me in this way: "Hello, Max. We will see you tomorrow." And I reflected, you will see me tomorrow. I don't know if I will see you tomorrow. And he was able, under medical doctor control, to see the pressure of the blood from here to you. You under control. And he was able to measure your incredible. And at the question, how do you do? The answer was always the same. I see it. Okay, I see it. Have you ever heard to talk about night watching? Bird watching? Bird watching, let's say the hobby to make pictures, to take pictures of the animals on their location. Well, night watching is the hobby to make photograph to the sky during the night. The most expert of night watching is my friend Robert, living in Venice. He's blind, totally blind. His wife put him on the car, put other very picture machines, goes under Genoa, on the hill over Genoa, and then he flashes the light. When I encounter him, it's a ritual. He sent me, "Oh, Max, look at what we have pictured yesterday," and give me a black sheet. And I don't see anything. So, obviously, I asked Robert, I don't see anything. Wow! Look at the left, down. There's a special shadow made. I made, yes. Ah, that's what. I don't ask him anymore, how do you do? But I do it. He do it. He does it. We know really very, very few of how we are constituted, also physically. Very, very few. And it's one of the most marvelous situation of the life. No? We think to know, but every day in some in some laboratory in the world, researchers manifest that something new has come. That's why. Stranger? Yes. At the beginning of this morning, I told about a mental software. Well, the blind has a mental software. And if we synchronize ourselves on that software and use that mental software, we can communicate and get in relation with the blind. Because he has adapted all his senses, all his experience to the life, to his life. And I can't pretend that he adjusts his life for me. I have to control my mental software to put in accordingly with him. Otherwise, we are not able to get in touch and to communicate. Because he imagine the reality in a certain way, and all we can do is try to give him more information as possible so that he can create in his mind and imagine more accurate as possible. And it's not true. Because also with communication, we think that we are able to communicate. But no, I'm not so sure. Because when I made communication training, I saw and experimented that we are not so able to communicate. We think to communicate. It's not so easy. Not so easy. All right? Let's remain here still a bit with the blind, because it's a special world. Did you ever made the exercise that used to be just during communication courses or during self-esteem increasing courses, where someone just made come si dice interpreti non ci stanno? Come si dice fascia? Come si dice banda, fascia? Blindfold. Blindfold. Okay, thank you. Blindfold. If you just put a blindfold here and close your eyes and remain 10 minutes alone, reality inside you changes. And when someone arrives and tells you, "Oh, good morning, I'm here," and I don't know if have you tried to let someone, you blindfolded, and to let someone to conduct, to guide in your room, in a room with chairs, with obstacles, how you trust in him and let you go, or how you, it's an incredible world, but it's a very rich world, very, very rich. The next sense is the hearing. But I want to remain here on the blind and on other disabilities to complete the information, the work this morning. Afternoon, we will talk about the deaf. Remain on the blind. I had the luck to make to blind a memory course. Memory techniques are memory based only on imagination. And it was a bet. Make a course of imagine and imagination to a blind. We worked together 3 days. And at the end of the 3 days, there's an exercise that complain all what we've done. The exercise is to memorize 20 or 40 or 30 or 40 pages of a magazine using photographic memory. But blind has not photographic memory. So I described page by page, particular by particular, there's 20 pages to charts. When we make verification, he was able to remember all the contents of the 20 pages because giving him so many particulars, an image has arisen inside his mind. And it was bad because I tell him, do you want to do it? Yes, of course. Describe me exactly what you see. And I will memorize. Incredible. It was a class of about 25 people. He was that performed the best results. Why? The question is why? Because he participated at the course at 100%. Very often we are not present in our present. We are here, but we think to other things. Never happened to guide, arrive at home, stop the cars, and say, oh my God, lost in phone calls, my reflection, I passed 3 cross lights. It happens, huh? If that happens, means that you are not guiding, driving. And so the question is, and who? Who was driving? Because you were not there. Physically, but not mentally. So, because we don't put our 100%. Blind do it, because they need it. Everything they do it 100%. We not necessarily made the same. That's the problem. We are not focused 100% on the results. We are not focused 100% to give assistance, real assistance. Real assistance not means I solve your problem, because I cannot solve all the problems of the disabled and of the world. I give assistance means I take care of your problem. And I will ask help to he is able to solve your problem. That means I take care. That means I assist. I give you assistance. It could have, I'm not able to solve it. I'm not an expert in that situation, but I know he can do it. Even in the passengers that are, for instance, embarking, suitcases, documents. I'm sorry, I'm not able to talk with the Dogan officer, but let me know. Mario, please, take this passenger to the... Is it clear? Blind is present in his present at 100%. Totally. worker because his survival depends on the map of the ambient where he is. That's why. So next time we saw a blind, we will consider him in another way. That's why. That's why. With respect, but let me see. Let me tell it with love, with the human comprehension. He's not better than us, and we are not better than him. Just different, just different. So, right? Too much silent.
Just some consideration about what you said. Just to summarize it, we could consider that more than the assistance action is important, the awareness one. For us, it's more important to know how the people with having impairments, in this case blinds, will behave, and then how we should assist them. Is correct? I'll try to. In fact, when we have to deal, with people with disabled people. In fact, we have 2 points to consider: assistance, direct assistance, and awareness. No? Awareness, yes. And the second point, the awareness is you consider it as more important, just to better and fully understand how these people behave. It's correct.
If I understand well, you are telling me that awareness as a consciousness of the situation. Okay. Of course. I can change my behavior and anything in my life, even if I am conscious of the situation, of my need, of me as people, as human being. So, what we are doing here, my culture, remember the beginning? My culture is to be conscious, to be awareness of special needs of people impaired. Taking into account an impairment can happen also to us. I use glasses since I was 4 years. I always wear the glasses. But I'm never consider myself impaired. Talking about sight and disabilities, I said myself, Ella, you are disabled. Disabled or disabilitated? Yes, first of all, in every field of life, first of all, we have to become conscious of us and of the environment where we live. That's why. I can modify, I can change something in my life only before I'm conscious. And I appreciate the advantages of the new positions. Otherwise, I remain just as I am, and that's all. So, I don't want to train people here or that are looking at us to train to assistance, but just wake up the consciousness on these problems, on this situation. And just with these few notes and conditions and information, I am sure, absolutely sure, that the next meet with the blind, you will react in a different way. And you will look him in a different way. For sure, for sure, for sure. Most human, taking care, because what that is what that each human being wants, that someone take care of us. And someone will take care of us if we take care of him. We have to do first the first step, and then the world react to us. Am I right? First do, then receive. It's a universal law. It's not my law. The universe works in this way. Other question? All is clear? It's impossible. Someone, tecnic, qualcuno che sta vedendo, someone is looking by YouTube, has made a question. They can do the question by YouTube. No problem, no problem. Okay, well, another 10 minutes, boy. Then we will make the lunch break, so we can face the deafness with the after lunch. Okay, but remain still 10 minutes on the blind or other disabilities. Just from these few words that we have said, we can consider the fact that the sensorial disability is a barrier more higher than the architectural disabilities. Because if you see a man on a wheelchair, you know what to have to do. He said what he needs. 2 or 3 people take wheelchair, put it on the steps and so on. It's easy to assist. His needs are easy to understand. With the blind, no. With the blind, no. Because each blind senses in a different way. So, am I right? I think I told you that blind in Italy are about 400,000. Many times. The problem of social integration is a very, very big problem. Because there are works to be adapted to blind. It's a big problem. But using residual capacities, we will see it's possible to make them, to help them to be socialized, to better socialize, to better be integrated in the life. Because if we don't use their mental software, we let them apart from life, and that's not right. Understand me? Other question? fill up. This morning fill up. Every drop we become, we put over plush. The glass, game over. Okay. We can stop here because I'm not interested in fill up an hour with minutes. I won't fill up an hour with contents, with consciousness. So we are still sufficiently tired to stop here, to have a lunch, and then we continue with the other great sensorial impairment. Okay? Vabbè? Okay. Good appetite. Thank you for the attention.